Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? Welcome to the close. This is Danielle. Let me start off by taking some questions. Well, I'm leaving for vacation tomorrow, but you know me, I can never stay away from the markets for long, especially with all of these good setups. Another day, another new high. Who can resist? I was going to try to keep my positions relatively light, just because, I'm flying tomorrow and whatnot, but what can I say? There's just so much to do. Danielle, are you gonna be at the Austin show in November? I wish I could go, but I have 3 kids now, and apparently my husband needs to be there, and it's a little challenging to try to make that happen with little babies. So I don't think I'm gonna be there, but I'll let you know if things change. Your BMNR trade was outstanding. Awesome. Glad you like that. Danielle, good video on SOUN, ALAB, all-time high today. Thoughts on CRWV? Okay, let's go ahead and start off with those. So whenever you are looking at the market and the indexes are at a new all-time high, I mean, that's typically going to be the best moment in time for short squeezes. And the reason for that is because the short squeeze works the best when the market just keeps surprising everyone and keeps making new highs. And, if you can identify tickers that have high short float that are also near the highs, especially if they're hard to borrow, what that can do is create some pretty explosive setups. And so BMNR, that was one that we located on Friday. And with this one, this is a relatively new ticker, and it's really difficult to get short float data for brand new tickers. So I can't say for sure that this is a short squeeze, but it just reminds me of Circle. I feel like the pattern is really similar. If you look at the overall chart pattern, the main thing that I noticed here was the squeeze. So we have the squeeze right here that occurred after, it was consolidating for a while, and then you can finally start to see the squeeze working. Um, and then what was really interesting about this is it started breaking out on high volume and increasing volume. And so with a short squeeze, you absolutely want to see volume that is continuing to increase on a daily basis. You also want to see something that is up on a high percentage basis. And so, right now this is up 8.39%. That's pretty good. It was up like 20%, maybe yesterday. Um, but anyways, it has another setup here, so I do think that it can keep going. I would have preferred if it broke to a new high today, and it didn't do that yet. And I don't love the way that it just keeps hitting resistance here and it isn't making it through. However, we have a 30-minute squeeze now. And a lot of the times with these 30-minute squeezes, what will happen is we'll see this consolidation and then it'll gap up overnight. So that's a pretty decent setup. I did already take profits on half of my long calls, and I went ahead and took profits on the put credit spread that I had, just because, like I said, I'm flying tomorrow, going to a water park on Thursday, so I don't really want to be in this situation where I'm trying to manage this super aggressive thing, but I'll keep a little bit of calls on, and I might be tempted to add some more just for fun. Um, if you look at the overall price target on this, it's going to be 74 and then upwards into 80. And the thing is that, if it can break up above 70, that's when it should really get going. So I do still like this ticker. Again, this is a super volatile, aggressive play. I don't know for sure if it has high short float or not. But I think that, it's one of these that's just kind of worth taking a stab at. It also has really high implied volatility. So with that as well, these puts are really juicy. So I was considering coming in and selling some more. The 30-minute squeeze, the thing about it is it's probably good for at least a gap up. I don't know that it's good for continuation for 10 days, but that just really depends on how long the move happens, or how long the move takes. Um, and especially it will depend on if it can get up above $70, because if it can get above $70, that's when it should explode and do like a circle kind of move. So I feel like you could probably do like another put credit spread for this Friday to trade that 30-minute squeeze. You can do something like selling the 65 puts, buying the 62s for protection. If you wanted to give it a little bit more time into next week, you could do that as well. But man, look at this implied volatility, 229%. Like, that's just crazy. So for stuff like this, you can get some pretty big moves. It looks like the credit is not as good as I thought on that. Let's see, for next week, $1.85. Well, $1.95 for $3 wide is really good, actually. Let's see. Yeah, that would be good. If you could get $1.75 for $3 wide, that's a good risk reward parameter. $5 wide, getting a credit of $2.60. I think that's pretty decent as well. This would be the lowest risk way to get involved, is simply selling a put credit spread and saying, you know what, I think it's going to stay up above 65. And if it is down 20% tomorrow, you have your risk locked in with the put credit spread. So I like that idea. As far as buying any more long calls, the ones that I had bought previously were only $2 and they were pretty far out of the money. The pricing on these has definitely gone up, because when I bought them, they were like a Delta 40 and they were $2, and this is a Delta 40 and it's $5.50. That is going out 17 days. I think I only went out 2 weeks, so that might make a difference. Let's see. If you went all the way down here, these are still $4. So I don't know. Pricing's gone up for sure. This is a pretty volatile name. I don't know that I'd want to go all the way out to like a Delta 36. I would rather get at least like a Delta 50, I think, if I was going to buy more long calls on this. So there's a couple of different ways you can trade that. Danielle, Ethereum Treasury Company Bitmine Immersion plans to issue 20 billion of stock to buy more crypto. Oh, wow. Crazy. Yeah, this one's definitely been a big mover. This is another one that has high short float. Typically I'm looking for like 15 to 20% of the outstanding shares are held short. Some of the tickers that have made it on my list, they actually don't even have that much. They have like 8 or 9%, but they're still just having these big moves because they're not very high volume stocks. If you look at SOUN, this one was an earnings explosion. So this ticker has high short float. They had better earnings than was expected. And you can see that they just have this massive increase in incoming volume. So with the short squeeze, you really want to capture it like right after earnings. At this point, it's one of those things where it's like, it could keep going with this 30-minute squeeze. But if you're looking at this one right here, you've already had just a big portion of the move. And so at least the post earnings move anyways, typically when you get an earnings move like this, it'll last like 5 to 6 days. So you're already on day 3. And you had a huge move already. So you could try to get in with a 30-minute squeeze and see if it would break out above this level right here. Because if it did that, that's when it would really take off. It's just that I normally like to have a higher time frame squeeze, like a daily squeeze or 195-minute squeeze, that would give you, movement for a longer period of time. These 15-minute squeezes are great, but They're usually as good for like an overnight gap, um, rather than like a week-long move. And if you look at the targets on it, I mean, the target would bring you up above that previous high. So that's really the key there. You want to get it up above that previous high. Um, that is where it could really start taking off. So it's certainly possible, but I just, that was kind of like the big move right there. Let's see, A Lab. So if you look at this one, this was another earnings explosion with the high short float. So, it's really important to pay attention to these tickers that have earnings that are right near previous high. This one was like a picture perfect example because you can see how it was going. That line is not straight at all, but you see what I mean? So this is where the previous high was, right? And it was going into earnings right below that previous high. And since the earnings report was the catalyst to cause it to break out like that, that's what caused it to explode. Now you can see at this point it's already up for 5 days. It's up another 6.36% today. The reason why this one's a little bit different is because it's still up. With SOUN, that one's down on the day. And so you have to remember that the short sellers, I mean, they're going to cover if they are losing money, right? Like they're not going to buy to cover if the ticker's down and it's running out of momentum. So for something like this one is one that could definitely keep going because it's up another 6.36% today. And if it goes out on the end of the day on high volume, then it could gap up again tomorrow. Now, there's not another squeeze set up on the 15 or 30-minute charts, but when you look at the overall chart pattern and the fact that it's right near that $200 price point, it's in this really nice trend. $200 is a great key psychological value. We're coming right up on options expiration. And you can see that there's high open interest at this $200 strike. So, it's one of those things where it's like, does it have exactly, 5 reasons to get into the trade? Well, you're fudging it a little bit because there's not a squeeze. But you have the high open interest. That's the magnet strike for Friday. It's an options expiration week. You have a butterfly that you could buy for $2.25. That's $10 wide. The ticker is already up 6.36% and it has high short float. So all those reasons, they're pretty decent reasons to get into a trade. The only thing that it doesn't have is a squeeze. So I mean, I like this, just trying to trade that post earnings momentum, trying to trade that the continual short covering. Overall though, I mean, these short squeeze setups just work the best when they're at new highs, when they're near earnings, and when they have a squeeze. So if we look at our short squeeze watch list, what you'll see is that there's quite a bit of movers today. We have RKT that's up 6.69%. We have QBTS, it's up 3.89%. We have Circle that's up 2.9%. We have CRWV up 4.87%. Look at this one. ASTS is up 10%. Okay, we got to look at that one. A-Lab, like we just said, 6%. SoFi, 5%. Nebis, 5.7%. OKLO, another 8% on this one. ACHR, 7%. TEM, 6%. And then APLD, 5.7%. Now, I want to show you guys something because this is really cool. Next week, I'm going to be doing a webinar with Public here in this room. And this is a brokerage that I've been using for the past couple of years, and it's really cool. But you know what they have now that is super awesome? They have this generated assets AI portfolio that you can create. So you can basically come in here and you can say, hey, you know what? I would like to create a portfolio based off of nuclear themes, whatever you want to do. Here's a couple different ideas here. So, as you guys know, what we have been doing is we've been focusing on these stocks that have high short interest. One of my main criteria is going to be stocks that have rising EPS numbers. And then I'm also looking for stocks that are at or near previous all-time highs. I'll take a 52-week high. It doesn't have to be an all-time high. I'll do a 52-week high. So anyways, I came in, and this is a free thing, by the way. You just go to the website. It's called generatedassets.com. Let me post this down here. So anyways, I made this portfolio based off of the short squeeze ideas that we've kind of been coming up with, right? And it had some really cool ideas in here. And my portfolio, I literally just made this morning and it's already number 4 on their list. So I thought that was really cool. But if you come in here with the list that I made, well, the AI made it based off of the criteria that I gave it. These are the different tickers it suggests. Bloom Energy, ASTS, BLDR, Upstart, Bros, SOUN, Roblox, CHPT, PLTR, GME, Tesla, CVNA, Lucid, Riot, MSTR, AMC, Affirm, Beyond Meat, ENPH, and Run. Isn't that crazy? So anyways, this is saying that it has like a 3.57x returns. And if you look at the graph compared to the S&P, it's, pretty significant. So these kind of short setups, I mean, they definitely work the best when you are at the new all-time highs, but I have been looking for some more ways to kind of like incorporate AI into finding some of these names and trading some of these names. And so I wanted to share that because that is pretty cool. So let's look at some of these others on this list. Let's see. Can you share the watch list? Yes, I can definitely share the watch list. Here is my short squeeze watch list for Thinkorswim. Any thoughts on MSOS TLRY on news of possible reclassification on cannabis? I can look at that one. TLRY and I do not get along very well, but maybe I could forgive it. I had like my worst losses ever on TLRY like 4 years ago. And after that, it got on my do not trade list and it's dead to me. Let's look at ASTS too and CRWV. Danielle, we do not have to do weed to get rich. You remember that day? Yeah, it was rough times. Anyways, if you have been around here for like 5 years or more, you will have noticed that I stopped my completely, wild, aggressive trading after that event. And I have been very dedicated to my position size ever since. Yeah, John was in it too. I know everybody was in the trading room. Everybody in the trading room was in it, which is why I got a little bit too excited about it. I'd like tripled my account in like, I don't know, like 6 weeks, and I lost all of it trading TLRY, because I decided it was my moment to go big or go home. Never again. All right, let's see. So CRWV, I didn't realize this one was today. Yeah, it was a bad day. It sent me on a tailspin for like 6 weeks. I literally couldn't trade for like 6 weeks after that because I was so, I was just like so heartbroken. It took me a long time to get back to being normal. But that's what happens when you do something stupid like that, which is why we do not put our entire account into one trade. If it works out, then, that's great. If it doesn't work out, then sometimes it's better to be lucky than smart, but, home is where the heart is, maybe not the money. All right. So CRWV, I mean, here's the thing about these kinds of tickers over earnings. I mean, it's just so new. I don't know that I can get you anything great based off of stats. Because the thing is that last quarter they were estimated to lose 17 cents and they lost $1.49. Like that's a pretty substantial loss, pretty bad. But yet the stock has just absolutely rocketed. So it's one of those things where it's like, it doesn't really, I mean, it doesn't really make a lot of sense just because typically what you would see with an earnings move like that is you would see a better beat than expected, or you would see something like they were expected to lose money and they ended up making money, and that's not really what happened. So fundamentally, I don't know that it makes sense without researching it more. From just the chart pattern itself and the one earnings report we have, I mean, I could be tempted to put a lotto trade on it to the upside. I mean, but don't get me wrong, it's not a situation where I have, months and months of stats. So normally when I trade earnings, I'm going to look at months and months of stats. And I'm going to say, okay, this ticker has, like, we can do RGTI for an example first. Let's do RGTI. So if you look at RGTI, you can see like pretty clearly that this stock has gapped down after earnings every single quarter. 11.3%, 10.5%, 13.8%, 1.3%, 4.9%, 9.1%, 10.5%. So if you're looking at this and you say, okay, 8 quarters in a row, it's gapped down after earnings. Is this really something I want to be long going into the report? That sounds kind of crazy. But you do have some additional factors. You have the fact that the quantum stocks have been pretty hot. Last quarter specifically, RGTI, they were estimated to lose 5 cents and they made 13 cents. And the reason why that was really important was because that was the quarter they were profitable. So, with some of these more volatile names, the EPS results are not going to be perfectly trending. I mean, normally what I like to see is I like to see continually increasing EPS numbers, and that's just not the case with this one either. So it's like this quarter they lost 14 cents. Then they lost 7 cents. Then they lost 8 cents. Then this random quarter they lost 68. It's like, what happened there? This quarter they finally made money. So it's one of those things where it's like, looking at your EPS numbers, it's not consistent. Looking at the gaps lower, not consistent either. But it does at least rally after earnings, and it is in an upward trend, and it does have a daily squeeze. So this is one of those things where it's like, if you want to hold the long calls through earnings just because you might end up getting one of these moves, which I'm still kicking myself over that one. Typically you don't want to hold long calls over earnings because the implied volatility is going to get crushed. The options have really high implied volatility going into the earnings report. And then after the report, the value is going to go down unless you get a massive explosion like this. So if you want to try to hold it just in case it does one of these kind of moves, I mean, you definitely can. And like with RGTI, the options are really cheap anyways. I'm already in them because I was trading the run into earnings and it just didn't really work. It's just still consolidating. It's not really going anywhere. Um, so I don't know. I'm still kind of torn on it. I mean, I guess I have to make a decision right now in the next 35 minutes. Let's look at the short interest here. I think it was like 30% or something crazy. Can you please post a link to the website? Yes. It's called generatedassets.com. All right, so this has 15% short float, so pretty decent. And the market maker expected move is $2. So if it got a move up into 18, that would at least break through this previous high. And then if it got twice the expected move, you would be getting close to that high. I don't know. It's one of those things where it's like, to be fully transparent, holding the calls through earnings is not going to be a super high probability bet. It's one of those things where it could work out really well, but it's, from a strict probability standpoint, it's not something that I can tell you like, hey guys, this is a high probability shot. Let's look at CRWV. And then I'll go back to RGTI. So with CRWV, I mean, it's the exact same thing. We don't have a lot of data. If you want to make a lotto trade on it, don't let me stop you. But it's definitely not one of these trades that I can say, hey guys, 75% of the time, like it goes up. It's nothing like that because it's brand new. So if we look at just a straight earnings trade on it, like a bullish earnings trade, I think that the easiest thing to do would just be to sell the put credit spreads. Now, the spreads are a little bit wonky here because the spreads are so wide, 1290 by 1350. So I don't love that. This one is $1 wide. Let me just see if you can get anything on it. So when the spreads are this wide, it's going to make it difficult for you to get in and get out. So I just don't really love that. So the spread is between 55 cents and $1.40. I really try not to trade options when the spread is over like 50 cents because it just makes it hard to get in and get out. If you really want to do it, I mean, you can, but the butterfly is going to be even worse. So if you're trading at 146 and the market maker expected move is 21, you could place a lotto trade up here. Let's go back and look at the previous high. I mean, I'm feeling like I would definitely say, 170 would make sense because that's where you have price resistance. 200 is obviously the key psychological value target, but in order for it to move all the way up to 200, I mean, you would need more than twice the expected move. So I don't know that I like that. I feel like it would be a pretty decent shot to place a lotto trade going up into 170. So 170 would be reasonable. It's within range of the expected move. If you did something like, just see how much it would cost. 150, 170, 190. So for this butterfly, it's only $3.15. The spread is less than 50 cents wide, so that fits that criteria. Um, and this trade would give you a $20 wide butterfly, so you could capture a move between 150 and 170. Now, if it went above 170, then yeah, you would start losing money unless you tried to do broken wing butterfly. Then it's going to cost you more. I mean, I like this. I think this is a pretty decent trade. It's a lotto trade over an earnings report with the idea that this thing could break up into right around that previous high. I think it's a relatively cheap way to get in. It gives you a $20 wide spread. So, I mean, I like that. That's pretty decent. You think A-Lab's going to 200? Yeah, I think A-Lab is going to 200. And then what was the other one that I wanted to check out? There was one here. Definitely OKLO. Oh, ASTS. Let's look at that one. Where do I get the tickers? A lot of the tickers I get from the trading room, because people ask me about the tickers and then I look at them and I'm like, wow, that's a great chart. But, I do a lot of research. I have a lot of media segments where I go on TV and stuff, and they always want the new ideas, the new and unique ideas. So, I mean, I spend a lot of time just looking at Twitter, reading, I just spend a lot of time reading, trying to locate new ideas, new things that might be moving. Okay, so ASTS, this one is up 9% after the earnings report. So this is definitely one that could keep going. I don't love the wick here. Typically with the short squeeze ticker, you want to see it going out on the highs of the day. So this isn't really what you want to see. I hate to keep going back to A-Lab, but this is what you want to see. You want to see something that's right up at, it's right up at the highs on the day. You want to see incoming volume. This one is starting to have a 15-minute squeeze. What was the other one that had the 15-minute squeeze at the end of the day? Maybe that was soon. So this one, the 15-minute squeeze is starting to fire and it's going positive. So here, and you can see the 30-minute squeeze right here at the end of the day. That one's probably going to take you to 17. So if you're trying to get an entry on a short squeeze ticker, definitely like the 15 and 30-minute squeeze right at the end of the day is going to be a great spot to do that. CRWV, I did not place a trade on it. What I was looking at was, okay, we could do the 150, 170, 180 broken wing butterfly for an earnings trade. I'm going to be heading to the airport tomorrow with 2 children under 2. So I don't know that placing an aggressive earnings trade is what I'm trying to get into right now. But I do like the idea. I like the idea. And, if you want to go ahead and take the idea yourself and also manage it yourself, then be my guest. But I'm not going to be posting and managing earnings trades for tomorrow morning because I'm going to be on a very long journey. So let's see. What do you think about Tilray and the weed stocks? So I have to tell you that the pattern does look really good. Like I said, I don't like Tilray, but, and it's not that I just don't like it because it gave me a bad experience. It's also because of the overall pattern. So this was actually the move that got me for sure. Or no, maybe it was this one right here. Yeah, it was this one in 2021. Um, so it's not just that I don't like it for emotional reasons, it's also that it has just a terrible pattern. So this was the time that I tried to do like a GameStop kind of trade on it. Because it had had this huge move, right? And then it was getting crushed, and it was trying to come back, trying to come back. And this is just the chart that like hammered into my brain. Like, forget about these stocks that are trying to recover. It's like so many more times, far more often than not, these stocks that have just gotten completely destroyed, they just continue getting destroyed. And so it's like, do you want to try to capture the recovery on a stock that is like complete trash, or do you want to try to ride the move to the upside on a stock that is crushing it? So I don't know. I feel like the Tilray experience, that was kind of like the final moment for me where I just said I will never try to trade these reversal patterns again, because there are just so many other opportunities where it's like, you can follow the trend, you can follow the trend on something that is continually going higher, and it's just a lot easier to go with the trend than it is to try to capture these reversals. I will say that yes, it is reversing for sure. It's breaking out above previous highs. You have a lot of incoming volume. It is really cheap. Like, there are things that are working in your favor, but it's just, if you go back and if you look at the previous times where like you may have thought it was finally going to get better for this company, and then look at what happened every single time. It's like, things are going good, things are good, and then look at this yellow candle. Boom, just one random day, it's completely hammered. This one's going up, it's going up. You think, oh man, I'm a genius, this is multiplying. Look at that. Random, huge gap just gets destroyed. Same thing here. Going up, going up, going up, just random day, just destroyed. So anyways, that is why I focus on the short squeeze to the upside near highs. And stay away from the losers, because you have to cut out the losers if you want to live the dream. All right, frog. I don't know that I see anything in that one. New highs, SPY, QQQ. Remember the bad weed trip? Yeah. The worst. The worst of the worst. As far as like an SPX trade here, I mean, it's just one of these days where it's like, we're just going higher. We're just going higher. We're still going higher. It's there. I mean, there's nothing to complain about. There's not anything in the way of major ticks. Typically when I do an end of day trade, I would like to see some consistent buying or selling. I would like to see some extreme buying or selling. We just don't have that here. Could we just buy a bullish SPX butterfly because the market just keeps going up? I mean, yeah, we could do that. We could do it. I'm telling the truth here. Yeah, that's right. Hey, man, that's what it's about. That's what the trading room is all about. I've had some bad moments in the trading room. The Tilray one was absolutely my worst. There was this one other time I was trying to be greedy with Tesla, and I lost like $5,000 like in the last 10 minutes of the day when freaking Elon tweeted about what was that tweet? I don't know. He made some tweet. I had this butterfly that was going to pin perfectly, and I was making like $5,000, and I was trying to wait until the last, 3 minutes of the day to close it out for a perfect pin. And then Elon made some tweet and I lost my entire $5,000 when Tesla tanked like 3% in the last few minutes of the day. Those are definitely my worst 2 days in the trading room. And now I don't wait until the last moment with my butterflies. See? Lots of lessons today, guys. Keeping it real. So I think with the SPX, if you really want to do something, again, I don't see a major setup here. I don't see like the ticks are at plus 600, the ticks are at plus 800, everybody's buying where, this is an obvious buy moment in time. So it's one of those things where it's like, could you do a bullish butterfly to target 64.50 because it's a key psychological value? I mean, you could if you're really just like dying to find something to do, but that's not how that's not how I like to do things. I like to have 5 reasons to get into a trade. Like, what are the 5 reasons to trade the 0 DTE SPX right here? Well, because we want to doesn't really count as a reason. If we look at the 5-minute chart, there is a 5-minute squeeze here. So that's one reason. If you look at the S&P futures, 64.69 would be the next target. Let's see. Look at the SPX. Looks to me like 64.45 is a little bit better of a target than the 64.50. But I mean, you're also getting just some selling right here. I don't know, guys. I love trading the end of day move, but I just don't see a clean move right here. BMNR. Okay, I'm going to try to get through all of the requests. So with BMNR, I do still have one contract of my long call on. I don't love that it's kind of like selling off here at the end of the day, but it is still up 6%. So it's not like it's down on the day. With these short squeeze tickers, what you do not want is you do not want them to end the day down, because that's usually when they reverse. So this one, it's like, well, it has the squeeze still. It's still up almost 7%. Can that squeeze fire overnight and get us through 70? It's still possible. So I'm going to hold my calls one more day. For an idea on SOUN. So this is kind of what I'm saying, where it's like, it's down on the day, so it's not perfect, but it is still in that post-earnings rally mode. It does have a 30-minute squeeze. It does have a clean price target at 17. So, and the options are really cheap. You could do a butterfly. Let's see. 15, 17, 19. It's only 64 cents. And you actually have more open interest at 16. You have a $1.33 expected move. So, I mean, I don't know. I feel like the 17 price target would give you just a little bit more room. So I like this idea. The other thing that you could do is just simply buy these Delta 50s for next week for 91 cents next week, or I would actually go out a little bit further into the 29th. Could buy some of these for $1.17. Tim not earnings at 26% short float and breaking a swing high. Okay, let's look at that one. Okay, I'm just trying to scroll through here to see how many of the questions I missed. Yeah, he tweeted about going private. That was the worst. I was on Charles Payne that day. I don't even remember. All I remember is watching my $5,000 evaporate. Danielle Shay, $10 wide iron fly selling for $7.20 for the 6450 pin. So I don't normally get into those this late in the day. If you want to try, you definitely could, but the last 8 minutes, you generally get quite a bit of movement. And so I usually try to get out of the iron flies before the last 8 minutes of the day. Ion Q, this one. So this has definitely been one of the top tickers on my radar, but I lost money on this one in July because it failed so many times at resistance. Here. So, I was making money on it, didn't get out because I was waiting for the breakout. Making money, didn't get out. And then it just ended up kind of rolling before earnings. So I ended up having to take a loss on my bullish move going into earnings. I still think ultimately, long term, it's a great stock. I like the daily squeeze. When you have a ticker that fails at resistance so many times, it's not a great sign. So that one might be better to just buy and hold the long-term stock, because I don't know when it's going to break out, but it's been taking a while. So with RGTI, I think I'm just going to, I have 5 calls on this. I feel like maybe I think I'm just going to reduce my risk a little bit. So I think I'm just going to sell 2 of the contracts. So I have 5. I'm just going to sell 2. That'll just give me a little bit less risk over the earnings report. And then I'll just hold 3 of these in case there's an explosive move. I'm going to... ETH looks like it has a few more points left. Grabbed some ETHA puts a few minutes ago for September. We'll back that up with intraday long 2x ETU if she tries to hold. Yeah, Ethereum has been looking great. Let me see. Looks very, very good. Up another 6% today. Okay, so look at that. You can see that it's breaking out up above the previous high. Looks like definitely 5,000 is the next target. There's a 20K contract block trade for $45 puts on BMMR Friday last week. I took my BMMR for a profit and bought 45 puts today. Nice. You were in Vashon last week visiting family. Great place. Awesome. Yeah, it's nice here in the islands. Amazon overnight for a 15-minute squeeze trade. So, I mean, Amazon is definitely one of those tickers that's good for an options expiration trade. I mean, I like it here off of the 50 simple. I like the idea that it's recovering after earnings. You're right at 221.64. So you could do like a 15-minute, 30-minute squeeze going into 225. So you can see here that there's 36,000 contracts at that 225 strike. So for stuff like this, what I usually like to do is just do like a 220, 225, 230. And then that way you have like a Friday options expiration trade. Let me see. SBET, SMCI squeezing. How many positions do you usually have on at one time? I mean, I'll go up to like 10, but I only have like 4 on right now because I'm flying tomorrow. So let's see. So for this one, it was looking great. It was trading really well. It had a volume and momentum coming into it, but after the gap down after earnings, I would just forget about it until it sets up again. Let's see. SBET. On the 14th. So this one has 10% short float. So that, pretty decent. If you look at this move right here, I don't know what that was caused by. I don't know if I see like a specific setup in here that I could actually trade, but it's definitely one you can put on the list. And if it starts breaking out, especially after earnings, it would be good for a post earnings move. For Tesla, so this is just one, like it just has got to get up above 350. It did some work. It broke out above the 50 simple and above the 200 simple. It's certainly improving. It got up above 325, but where I'm most interested is if it can get above 350 and then specifically 360. QBTS. So this one looks pretty good. It's up 6.3%. It already made it through earnings. So, you know, they were expected to lose 6 cents. They lost 8, so not great, but they have the squeeze. They held up above the 50 simple. They're pretty close to those previous highs. It's up 6% today. So this is one that I would consider is good for an entry right now. And then you also have a lot of lower time frame squeezes. Let me check out the short float on that one. Oh man, market's going to close in like 3 minutes. I better hurry up. Okay, so there's 17% short float on that one. The target would be 22.50. Fast. Let's see. Let me get some of these. I'll get these Delta 60s the first week of September. I'm going to try to get filled fast just because the market is about to close. All right, so those are at the 18 strike in September. It doesn't matter like too much. There's plenty of liquidity in these strikes. I feel like Delta 60 is pretty good. It's a pretty good price. Allows me to get 3 contracts. You have multi-time frame squeezes. You've already gotten through earnings. So to open, this is a bullish trade on QBTS. This ticker has 17% short float, multiple squeezes, is up on the day, and it's near previous highs. My target is 22. Note, this is a volatile ticker. Yeah, it could definitely move based on RGTI, but I mean, also I mean, they already reported earnings. So I feel like it's a little bit different because if it was one of those things where it's like, we don't know what their earnings report is going to be, then I would expect it to be more impacted by RGTI. But since they already had their earnings report. And then as far as other trades that I have on, NVIDIA so far is coming along just fine. This is going to expire next week. I'm targeting 190 on it. You're currently up at 183. So this is a 180, 190, 200 butterfly. It's chugging along just fine. You just bought 100 shares of QBTS for $18.06. Maybe I should sell some covered calls. I would not recommend selling covered calls over earnings unless you want the possibility of having those covered calls become in the money and then losing your shares. Unless you don't care about that, then it doesn't matter. But selling covered calls over earnings is like a pretty risky thing to do. Generally you want to sell the covered calls when you don't think there's going to be a ton of volatility. So, you can come in and like, let's say it does gap up like 10% tomorrow. Then maybe you could sell the covered calls after that because then it already had the big move. But in this case, because it has high short float, it might end up going higher even if it has the 10% move. You see what I mean? Thoughts on gold? Seems like we're bottoming from the pump last week. Looks like the SPX came just shy, but did trade higher going into the final seconds of the day. So gold is just, I mean, this is just squeezing, squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. This thing is going to break out eventually. When it will happen, I don't know when. It's very typical for a ticker that has broken out to this extent to squeeze for a while after that. So to me, it just looks like it's just stuck right around this price point. Let me redo these levels. So it looks like 3,700 and then 3,800 is next. And you see how it's squeezing on a weekly time frame? So whenever something has a weekly squeeze, it can squeeze for months on end, meaning it can trade sideways and in consolidation for a long time. So I don't know how long it's going to do that for, but in good news, when something squeezes for weeks or months on end, eventually it breaks out and has a massive move. So, I mean, to me, it looks like a good time to be building up like GLD for when it eventually breaks out, but but I don't know when that breakout's going to happen. And then I would target 320, 330 on that. I have VIX calls for September. Somebody shoot me, please. Why do I hate myself so? Yeah, we don't usually trade the VIX. I feel like this whole August, September seasonality thing, like so many people were looking for it that there was just no way it was going to come through. It's like everybody's getting bearish, and so the market just rockets higher. Would you say that Ethereum is extended? No, I wouldn't say it's extended. Because, I mean, okay, first of all, it depends on your time frame. So if you just look at like this last move, like, yes, it's extended on this very last move that we got on this most recent swing, because you've already made the recent high, you made the 1272, you made the 1618. But if you look at the big picture here, the big picture is that it's breaking out. It's breaking out above 4,000. It's breaking out above these major areas of resistance. And when that happens, you're usually going to get a race to that previous high and then the next target at 5,000. So it's like, yeah, is it extended on that current move? Yes. And if you were going to do a short-term trade, then I would not advise to get in right now. But on this longer term time frame chart, it's like, this looks really good. So, you could still look at this thinking that it could still, go onwards and upwards into 5,000 from here. And then 6,000 after that. That makes sense. AMD 15 and 60-minute squeezes. Oh, man. And a 195-minute squeeze. All right. I would have been tempted by this one if I would have seen it before the market closed, but this one looks great. Price target up at 190 and then 200 with the 195-minute squeeze. Perfect 5-star pattern. Multi-time frame squeezes. clean price target at a nice key psychological value. RGTI tanking. Good thing I reduced some risk on that one. I'm saying, that is what it typically does over earnings. If you look at the earnings hot zone, I mean, it's rolled like every single earnings report, but what's weird is that it rallies after. All right, let me go ahead and post this chart setup for you. And then I'll look at RGTI with you. This ticker. Pick up leaps on the sell-off. I bought this stock on RGTI also. All right, so let's see what the expected move was here. So the market maker move on this stock is $2.31. So unless it's down, I would say $4, especially $5, it's really not tanking. Being down $2.31 or less would just be the definition of a regular move in the normal range. So as of right now, it looks like it's only down like 75 cents. And it looks like it fell $1 at most. So that's actually pretty normal and within the expected range. What trade would you do on AMD? QBTS, 15th of August. I did this 5th of September. If you want to do the 15th of August, that's going to be really short dated. If it gapped up overnight, then you could make money on it, but you're just not going to have any other time. So if it doesn't come through immediately, when am I going to be back? Today is my last trading room session. I'm flying out tomorrow, and then we'll be back next Wednesday. You see the same pattern on GLD? Awesome. Great. All right. Well, I think that I answered all the questions. Henry's going to be covering a couple of my sessions. Thanks, Henry. Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a vacation. We'll see if, I don't know. We'll see if I can, well, obviously I'll manage the trades that I have on. I don't know if I'm going to get another one on AMD, but I mean, I would do a butterfly. You could do a butterfly at 190. Let's see. Could do some Delta 60 calls in September. 190 price target. You go for like 190 going into the 29th. $3.25. Thanks for coming on, of course. Inverse head and shoulders on AMD. Yeah, I can see that. It's kind of sloppy, but I mean, it is pretty overbought and extended here. We did have a weekly squeeze that fired to the long side. We had a massive move, but with the head and shoulders, it is definitely something to look out for. But if it keeps breaking out, then that would negate that pattern. If it starts, if that squeeze ends up firing to the downside and that other shoulder forms, then it's like, okay, well, then we're kind of hosed. But I do like this lower time frame chart pattern. It's been in a really nice trend, perfectly stacked moving averages, nice lower time frame squeezes. Overall, I like the pattern. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining me. I'll look forward to seeing you when I get back from vacation. Nothing is extended when the pump is endless, and that's exactly how it's been. All right. Well,